again, my little yarnivores and spiderettes. Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. And today I have got a great little tutorial on making slippers. They are very, very simple, very, very quick. So if your feet are in need of some toastiness, or if you need a last minute gift, these are perfect. So I'm going to be using this is Lion Brand's Pound of Love. It's one of my go-tos. It's a worsted weight yarn and it is acrylic. So washing and drying, hey, that's easy. Now, for this yarn, I'm going to be using a size 5.5 millimeter hook. This is a size I crochet hook. And we are going to be working in single crochets today. Very, very easy. Now, what you need is the length of your foot along the bottom of your foot, from your toe to your heel. Now, when I measured it out, it was, it was approximately for me about 9 inches. Okay. But because I like for my slippers and my socks and so forth to be a little bit on the looser side, I added 1 inch. And honestly, they came out perfect for me. So you can make these whatever size you want. As far as the rest of the dimensions, it's all about the geometry. And I'm going to show you that. It's very, 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 very simple. Okay, so without further ado, we shall get started. Alrighty, so I have my base chain all ready to go, and it is approximately 10 inches. Now, what you can do is, if you're not sure about your gauge as far as how many stitches per inch, what you can do is create a little itty bitty swatch of single crochet stitches and measure out how many stitches per inch you come up with. Me, I ended up with about 3 stitches per inch. So in order to get the 10 inches, I ended up with 30 chains, for, 30 stitches, but adding, of course, one more chain so that we end up with the 30 stitches because we do a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. Now, what I would suggest is, regardless of the exact number that you need, I would suggest having an even number of single crochet stitches because it will make the process just a little bit easier when we get to the next part of our tutorial. But for right now, so I have 31 chains so that I have a total of 30 single crochet stitches. Now, of course, do what works for you, because also if you want to use a thinner weight of yarn or a thicker weight of yarn, or if your feet are a different size and shape, well, you might need to make some adjustments. So, quite simply, just going to go into the second chain from the hook and single crochet. For me, that's really all there is to it. And you just single crochet your way all the way to the end. And then when you reach the end, you chain up one and you do another row, and so on and so forth. Now, what I would suggest is, while you are doing this, now this base chain would not count as a row, but at the end of this row, yes, that would be one finished row. Keep notes as to how many rows you actually need in order to achieve your rectangle of stitching. And that way, when you're going to make your second slipper, you won't have to worry quite so much. It's good to take notes. I do it all the time. So we are almost to the end here. Also, if you have the patience to work with really, really fuzzy and foofy yarn, I think that this would be an awesome pattern for fuzzy slippers. And so when you get to the end of your first row, be sure to take note, do tally marks or use a row counter, what have you. And then when you reach the end, chain up one, turn your work, and resume single crocheting across. There you go. Now, to get to the next part, I'm going to keep crocheting and I'm going to show you what to do to figure out is your piece big enough and then go on to the next step. So bear with me. I'm going to keep crocheting and I will see you in a moment. Alrighty, so I did a total of 18 rows and I stopped here. Why? Because what you do is you take these two top corners and you fold them down. This is sort of like origami, if you will. And you fold them down and have the side edges along the bottom edge, like so, and like so. And these two edges, they meet in the middle. And so that means that our piece is ready to go. Like I said, it's about the geometry. It's more of a formula rather than an actual pattern. So at this point, what we're going to need to do is continue on with the second part of our tutorial. So we did, for me personally, I did 30 single crochets across, 18 rows high. Now we're going to be doing the second part where we incorporate our new yarn, which I have right here, and grab my crochet hook. Now I went all the way to the end, so I'm going to rip out that last stitch. There we go. And I'm going to finish the stitch with my new yarn. So we have our last single crochet of the row. Also, it's good to leave nice long tails because we are going to be sewing later. This tail really doesn't matter so much, but the beginning and the end tail, you might want to have a little bit longer. So finishing up this last single crochet with the new yarn. There we go. Chain up one and turn your work. So because I did 18 rows with my first color, we're going to be doing 18 rows with the second color. However, now this is why I said to do an even number of single crochets for the width of your piece, because that way, when we're doing this piece, it will be that much easier because we need half the number of stitches. So that being said, we're going to need 15. So working our way across for 15 single crochet stitches. So we've already got 2, 3, 4, 5. Come on. 5. Thank you. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Just want to double check always. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15. Okay, so we only went halfway across our piece. And that's why, again, I suggest an even number of single crochets. So from here, chain up 1, turn your work, and single crochet your way across to the end, chain up 1, single crochet your way across. For me, like I said, 18 rows, and then, believe it or not, my piece will be done. And it will look something like this. Yeah, so I already have my other one all good to go. And so I'm going to keep on keeping on with my 18 rows of my new color, and then I'm going to show you how to turn this into a fabulous little slipper. All right, so I'm going to keep stitching, you keep stitching, and I will meet back up with you. All righty. All right, my dears. So now comes the fun part. Okay, now ordinarily, I am not a big fan of sewing. However, this is an exception to the rule because with the sewing that we're going to be doing, if you did a single crochet join or a slip stitch join, it would be a little bit thicker, a little bit ridgier, and I would not suggest it. That being said, yes, we are going to be sewing today, but it isn't that much, so we will forge ahead. Now, when you have both of your L's, backwards and frontwards, we are going to position them as such because we want them to be, well, a pair. If you did them exactly the same way, well, they would be asymmetric, right? You'll see what I mean as we go. I hope I'm making sense. So when you have your slippers, what we're going to do is we're going to take our first one and fold it down so that this edge comes down with this side edge. Just sort of fold it down like so. So it comes to a point right there, almost like a little elf shoe. However, no, your finished piece is not going to come to this ridiculous point. Oh, no, no. So this is what it'll look like. And then doing the same thing with the other one, bringing the top edge, this edge here, down to this side edge here, like so. So they are a mirror image of each other. Now, the reason why I stress this point is because when we do the sewing, we are going to turn them inside out because I'm going to be doing a whip stitch. So we are going to be working with one first, and then I will do the other one off camera. It's the exact same technique. Now, what I would suggest is along this bottom edge here, going to take a little stitch marker here, or you could use a safety pin, what have you, and lining it up going to go through both layers with my stitch marker and sort of tack it into place here. Now, the reason why is because on this side, the rows go this way. On the other side, they go in the opposite direction. So lining up, stitch for stitch, it's a little bit fiddly and finicky. However, we can do it. And then on the other one, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So lining up my pieces here. Very good. And then just going through both layers of my fabric and then pinch it closed. This will help in the long run. I mean, there is a little bit of eyeballing involved, but this will definitely help. So let's get started with the first one. Okay, so to sew your slipper together, quite simply, I'm going to be starting by using the contrasting tail because along the bottom, when we're sewing together, I'm going to be using the main color, this color here, because we're going to be going all the way and then we're going to finish up the toe area. So I think it would make more sense as opposed to using this color for this area here, which would totally contrast. We're trying to make this as invisible as possible. So with the contrasting color, we're going to start by lining up our pieces. Now, of course, if you want to have another stitch marker holding these two corners together, that's cool too. But I think just the one in this case will be fine. So all you have to do is just line these up and start sewing both layers together. Does not have to be an exact science, and I would say that my sewing is not absolutely brilliant. However, you want to try to make it as even as possible. So if you can line up a stitch for a stitch, that's really nice. Also, I would suggest not going through just one strand, but two if possible. See, right here, I'm going underneath two little loops right there, and then on the other side through two little loops. Gives a little bit more reinforcement. Like so. And so just do this all the way across. And like I said before, since the direction of the stitches isn't the same, I don't think that a mattress stitch would work necessarily, but this whip stitch does work very nicely and very easily. So, going to just work my way across to the end, and that is all there is to it for the back of our piece. All right, so I will see you in just a moment. Okie dokie, so I stitched all the way across. I will deal with that tail later. And now for the bottom edge, this is where our heel is. So very much like we did before, we're just going to be doing a whip stitch across to that point there. Just going to get this started. And I will continue to stitch to my marker. And then when we get to the marker, well, it's a little bit different, but I think it creates a really nice and comfortable toe, which I rather like. It's a little bit weird, but it totally works. So I'm going to keep doing my whip stitch till I reach my marker, and I will see you in a bit. Okay, so we are in the home stretch. We have the opening of our slipper up here. We have that first edge that we did, and then this bottom edge to where I had the marker. I did remove it, and we are going to continue with the toe. Now, this is the funky part. What you're going to do is instead of just continuing to sew all the way to the end, no, this is, again, where sort of the origami comes into play. This tip, bring it down to the last stitch that we did, like so, and that's going to create the toe. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sew across here, double back, and then sew here, and then weave in our tail. Yeah, it's a little bit weird, but it works. And also I think this is why adding the extra inch to the length of my foot really did come in handy. Now, does it look very fashionable? No, they are slippers. They're made for inside of the home and being snuggly wuggly. These are not going to end up on the cover of Vogue, I assure you. All right, so starting off, going to go from our last stitch right into the corner, right into the tip here. There we go. And we will secure that by going through again. Make it a little bit easier, sort of like a tacking stitch, if you will. There we go. And then sewing these two layers together first. You know, it's a little bit weird, but it is really, really simple in the grand scheme of things. Because all you need is the measurement for the length of your foot, and then the rest, quite frankly, falls into place. Which I think is rather convenient. There we go. And just a couple more. And also, actually, if you were to do this perhaps using something other than crocheting, I think a fleece would look really quite nice and be very, very comfortable. You would just need to do the measurements and then mark it out and so forth. Okay. And then, of course, you could probably use a sewing machine, but you would want to add a seam allowance, etc., etc. Okay, so from here, just going to go back through the stitches that I just did, sort of weaving our tail through. Nothing major. Back to where we started. And this is also why I suggested using a nice long tail to make this process easier. In fact, I had to start a fresh piece of yarn because I ran out. I do make mistakes or miscalculations. All right, so that part is done. Now I just need to do this second little bit here. Not too difficult. No, no, no. And just be sure that you're going through both layers. Don't want to have holes in your toes. Okay, just a few more to go. And with the one exception of what I mentioned before about doing sort of a mirror image of how you fold them down, the left from the right, the construction is symmetrical. It is the same, so it is really quite simple. Now, if you did your piece using just one color of yarn, which is totally acceptable, you don't even have to worry about that. Very, very convenient. Okay, so our sewing is complete. Just want to check. Yep, all good. And then just sew in your last remaining tail. Just weave in your ends. And secure it however you wish. And of course, I got tangled. It happens. There we go. There we are. And you can snip your yarn and then turn your finished piece right side out so that if there is any seaming involved, it will be on the inside. Now, yes, this does look like a funky booty. However, when you are wearing it, yes, it does conform to the shape of your foot a lot more flatteringly. So, there you go. Absolutely love, love, love how simple these are. And you can get really creative with different color combinations. You can embellish them too if you want. Also, what you could do is go around the top edge here with a contrasting color of yarn, or if you did the same color of yarn, you could do like this one or a different color altogether. You could add some pom-poms, some buttons, some bows. You could drive people crazy and add some bells if you're so inclined. Have fun with it. Get creative. So, that all being said, listen, I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. I love sharing new things with you guys, and they're so easy, so quick to do, and make yourself a pair, or better yet, make yourself a pair and a pair for somebody you know, like, or love. So, I hope you enjoyed today, and if you did, give a little thumbs up button down below because you know that I appreciate your appreciation. And until next time, I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, stay stitching, and please stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now, everybody, and have a great day.